What's up guys, welcome back to another What If. Today we will be continuing the next part of What If Team Aqua sponsored May. If you haven't seen part 1, it can be found on Pickled Dill's channel, link in the iCard above.
This story is also part of the GSA Extended Universe, so be sure to check out Ronin Charizard and Plus Ultraman's What If Giovanni Sponsored Ash series, since you never know who might show up in a connected story. And with that said, let's get on to today's video.
Nosepass is unable to battle. Swampert wins. Victory of this match goes to May the Challenger. These words ring through the Rustboro gym, and from her side of the field, May rushes over to her partner, giving it a hug. They are then approached by Roxanne, who smiles down at them and gives her congratulations. Though when May meets her gaze, she sees puzzlement in the gym leader's eyes. In a friendly tone, Roxanne laughs that she underestimated the girl when she said she didn't have any badges. But she can see now that was a mistake since her bond with Swampert more than carried her through this battle. For that reason, she is delighted to present them with the Stone Badge and wish them luck in their gym challenge. She then extends a hand offering May the Stone Badge, which she takes with her thanks before admitting that there's something she wants from the gym leader more than her badge. She wants information. Roxanne nods that as a teacher, she is happy to pass on any information she might have. And so, taking a deep breath, May asks the question that has been on her mind this whole battle. Has Roxanne recently seen a boy with dark shaggy hair and glasses dressed in all red? For a moment, Roxanne ponders this. With the shake of her head, replies that she has not, asking if there's any reason May thinks she would have. Weighing her options, May sighs that she supposes not, though there is one thing she'd like to know. Where is the nearest gym? A look of sadness crosses Roxanne's face here, and she says that it used to be the Petalburg gym, but 2 weeks ago that burnt down. Nodding dejectedly, May says that she heard about that, a pit forming in her stomach as memories best forgotten flood in. Nonetheless, she keeps her face neutral, using all that she's learned from Team Aqua to avoid betraying her innermost thoughts. And even forces a smile, telling the gym leader that she's sure she'll find another gym sooner or later, and thanking her for the battle. Suddenly, the gym seems terribly airless, and still with a forced neutrality, May beckons for Swampert to follow her outside. Only when she is clear of the building does she allow her true feelings to show, erupting into tears as she slumps to the ground, cradling her knees. How had it all gone so wrong? Max was right in front of her and she let him get away. Not only that, but her home has been destroyed in the process, and it seems that Ash had abandoned her. The whole operation has been a disaster, with the only good thing coming from it being Max letting it slip that he was challenging the gyms in hope of becoming champion. She thought if she'd do the same, maybe she'd run into him, but even now the trail has gone cold. Seeing her anguish, Swampert wraps its trainer in a hug, its cool, meaty paws squeezing her comfortably in spite of all her problems. May has to smile. Swampert has always been there for her, even in the worst of times, her true and unquestionable best friend. Just knowing that it is still here gives her strength, and so rising to her feet at last, May wipes the tears from her eyes. Forcing enthusiasm into her hoarse voice, she asks her partner if he would like to try some of Rustboro's famous pasta to celebrate their win. And having picked up its trainer's love of food, Swampert certainly isn't gonna refuse.
Heading towards the docks, May and Swampert find the pasta place with no issue, and so soon find themselves staring down two large bowls piled high with delicious carbonara. Naturally, Swampert just dives in head first, making a terrible mess, and May has to laugh as she cleans sauce from its fins. Ever since it was a mudkip, Swampert's never hesitated, always charging headlong into any situation. It's what makes it such a loyal protector, but more than once it's gotten the pair into hot water. Looking back, those bad times now just feel like funny memories, and May has to wonder whether one day she'll look back on the present as something she can laugh about. However, those days it seems are still far away, as before May can even try her own pasta, she catches sight of something that immediately makes her lose her appetite. The skull and crossbones A of Team Aqua. Looking out the corner of her eye, May sees that her suspicions were correct, as three figures bearing the logo enter the restaurant. The two in the back are just grunts, but the one in front is a tall woman with a mane of curly red hair, and May immediately knows who that is. Tactical Commander Isabel. The appearance of Team Aqua has caused the entire restaurant to go silent. and so Isabel's soft footfalls sound like the cries of an exploit as she saunters over to the counter and drops into the stool next to May's. On her other side, Swampert bristles, clearly readying to fight for its trainer, but laying a comforting hand on it, she tells it to stay calm before turning her attention to Isabel. In her well-practiced neutral voice, she asks what the tactical commander is doing here, and just as calmly, Isabel replies that Archie wants a word with her. A hint of venom leaking through now, May retorts that she has nothing to say to Archie since their business is concluded, but with a sardonic chuckle, the redhead replies that obviously their boss doesn't see it that way. So here's what's gonna happen. She's gonna be a good girl and put her Swampert back in its ball, and they'll all go see Archie together. For a moment, May considers refusing, since she knows Swampert could take these grunts no problem. But that still leaves Isabel, who has a reputation for her strategic battling style. And what's more, Swampert is still tired from its battle with Roxanne, so that would only put her poor partner at more of a disadvantage. Looking back to Isabel, May can see the tactical commander has already made the exact same assessment, and so seeing no alternative, she returns Swampert to its ball, bracing herself for whatever cruel surprise Archie has in store for her.
Butler is a traitor. Butler is a traitor. Max repeats these words to himself, making them his mantra. He thought he knew Butler. They've been partners, spent days working hard together, and talked long into the night about their dreams. He would have never suspected him of betraying Team Magma, but he had. Maxie had told him so. Maxie told him how after he had followed May into the gym, Butler had teamed up with their target to attack his own teammates and let the Cantonian boy escape. It was treason, plain and simple, and Max only wishes he could have asked Butler why. But the scientist had been kept under guard and allowed no visitors before his hearing. When the time came to pass judgment, Maxie was merciful, taking Butler's prior work into consideration and had let him off with a simple dismissal from Team Magma. A just sentence for a traitor. It has been almost 2 weeks since then, and without Butler's technical abilities, their project has been shelved indefinitely. This has left Max in a rather aimless state, wandering the base with Blaziken and trying not to think about his former partner, or about the burning greenhouse that haunts his nightmares every night. Maxie has visited him a few times, and during these times, Max is able to get his mind off his own problems. But being so busy, the Magma boss hasn't been able to stay very long, leaving Max feeling lonelier than before. These feelings are suffocating, he can't escape them, just like when his parents died. Thankfully, unlike then, he actually has someone who cares about him now. And so one morning, when Max emerges from his quarters, Maxie is there waiting for him. With a fatherly smile, he tells the boy he has a surprise for him, and Max gratefully thanks him, asking what it is. Still smiling, Maxie says it's not here, but he's sure Max won't mind going on a little adventure with him. Max most certainly does not, eager for anything to pull him away from this malaise, and so following Maxie to the helipad, boards a chopper bound for parts unknown. As the pair depart from their Mount Chimney base, Maxie's fatherly expression shifts to one of concern, and asks how Max is holding up in light of recent events, and not just the whole Butler incident, but as well as an unexpected encounter with his sister. Stoically, Max says he has no sister. Team Magma is his family now, a claim that earns him a pat on the shoulder from the boss, who promises that he will always have a place among them. However, he hopes Max knows that if there's anything that is bothering him, he can always talk to him. Smiling, Max says that he knows, and this causes the worried look to leave Maxie's face. As he says that, in that case, he thinks it's time to put Max back on active duty. Nodding resolutely, Max says that he's ready, and this clearly pleases Maxie, who tells his protege that he's glad to hear it, since he's gonna need his help with something very important. In order to reach Max's surprise, they need to steal a submarine.
Stepping onto Archie's yacht, May's first thought is that the Aqua boss has managed to make it both garish and gauche. Every surface is trimmed with what she can only hope is faux Arcanine fur, and as she is thrust into Archie's private cabin, the reek of Haxorus body spray assails her nostrils. Waiting for her inside is Archie, with a wide grin on his face, and when May is seated across from him, he chuckles that she really has a terrible sense of direction. This is said in a tone of teasing rather than anger, much to May's bewilderment, and when she doesn't reply, Archie keeps talking, Still grinning, the Aqua boss continues that obviously that's why she didn't come back to base with the others, because she got lost. Right? In truth, May had used the chaos of the disastrous operation to flee, figuring that since she now knew about Max's gym challenge, she had no reason to keep debasing herself for snippets of information from Archie, and so she had set her course for Rustboro in the nearest gym, spending 2 weeks just traveling with Swampert, and finally feeling free for the first time since her parents' passing. Now it seems Archie wants her to go back to being his demure little plaything, but that isn't gonna happen, since now that she doesn't need him anymore, she has nothing to fear from him. Smirking, May tells him as much, proudly pronouncing her time working for him is over, so unless he actually has something of value to say for once, she's leaving and never coming back. Archie does not interrupt, letting May say her piece, before calmly asking, "You finished?" May nods, her jaw set, and Archie grins that's good, before snapping his fingers. At once the grunts who had accompanied Isabel grab May's arms, pinning them behind her back, while the bearded boss rises to his feet at last and leisurely strolls towards her. When they are face to face, he leans down, and in a hiss that carries all the malice in the world, whispers that they're done when he says they're done. He then runs a hand down her side, before his fingers close around Swampert's ball, pulling it from her belt, and staring at it as if in deep thought. Furiously, May demands to know what he thinks he's doing with her Swampert, but Archie chuckles that actually it's his Swampert, since May only got it on Team Aqua business, meaning it's Team Aqua property, and since it's his property, he's gonna have a bit of fun with it.
Pleading now eclipsing anger, May urges Archie not to hurt Swampert, but the Aqua boss chuckles that he thought May said she was done with him, so why would it matter to her what he does with his Pokemon? He then strolls lazily from the cabin with the grunt still holding May, forcing her to follow. Standing guard at the prow of the yacht is Isabel, and when Archie sees her, he instructs her to bring out her Ludicolo. Blank face as ever, the tactical commander obeys, hurling a Pokeball and bringing forth a happy Kappa. When it is in place, Archie throws Swampert's ball, causing the Mudfish to look around in confusion as it spots its new surroundings and May's predicament. Urgently, May yells at her partner to run, but before the sentence is even out of her mouth, green tendrils lash out around Swampert's limbs, tails, and throat. Looking around, May sees that Ludicolo is the cause, and once Archie nods, Isabel has it use Giga Drain. At once, green bioelectricity crackles from the tendrils, and in the face of quad-effective damage, Swampert shrieks in pain. In their time together, May has seen Swampert endure plenty of pain that would have felled a lesser Pokemon, but never has she heard it cry out in such agony. Desperately, she tries to break free from the grunts holding her, as Swampert does likewise with the Giga Drain bindings. However, both of their efforts are equally pointless, as soon Swampert hits the ground writhing and twitching. Its every muscle is in spasm as the tendrils sap more and more of its vitality. Even fainting can't save it, as another jolt of bioelectricity forces it back to consciousness, where it must continue to endure its torture, with it seeming the only reprieve it can expect is death, a fate which at this point cannot be far away. Tears rolling down her face, May pleads with Archie to stop this, saying she's sorry and she'll do whatever he wants, just please stop hurting her friend. Leering, Archie says that what he wants is for her to get it through her head that he owns her, just like he owns this Swampert. And if she ever speaks to him like she did back at the cabin, he won't hesitate to end either one of them. Sobbing, May nods her understanding, and so the grunts drop her, just as Isabel's Ludicolo releases its hold on Swampert. Trainer and Pokemon both drop to the ground, and as Archie surveys them both coldly, he growls that from now on, May should only focus on one thing, and that thing alone: how she's gonna win her next ribbon for him. Wordlessly, May nods, earning her a smirk from the Aqua boss, who drops Swampert's ball at her feet, telling her to get going, and to remember to smile more, since she's prettier when she smiles. Returning Swampert to its ball, May shambles from the deck and back onto the pier, her mindset squarely on getting Swampert the medical attention it needs. However, before she can even get 3 steps away from her vile boss, he calls out to her to stop, saying he just had a brainwave. Isabel should go with May. It'll be fun, a real girls trip. And of course, if May forgets her promise again, Ludicolo can always remind her. The unspoken threat sends a shiver down May's spine, and not trusting herself to speak, she simply nods her understanding, stopping in place, allowing Isabel to approach her. Cackling, Archie tells the pair to have fun. Then with a quick gesture of his hand, the grunts on board raise the anchor and take off into the open ocean.
When they are alone, Isabel coldly tells May that she brought this on herself. If she'd just played nice and done her job, she could have kept doing whatever she was doing here in the city, and no one would have cared. But instead, she decided to try and make Archie look stupid. And now because of it, Team Aqua's technical command has been reduced to her babysitter. May has no sympathy for this woman's whining, and so instead just mumbles that Archie is stupid. Giving a small grunt of amusement, Isabel tells the girl she's right. Archie's an oaf, but he's a very prideful oaf, and when someone threatens that pride, well, she saw what he was willing to do. Swampert's shrieks ring in May's ears once more, and this reignites the passion in her voice as she asks what she's supposed to do then. Just let him do whatever he wants while she has to tiptoe around, making sure she never threatens his fragile ego? Bluntly, Isabel says that's exactly what she's supposed to do. This is Archie's world, she just lives in it, and the faster she realizes that, the less likely she is to die, or to watch someone she cares about pay that price for her. This proclamation leads to a heavy silence, with May not knowing what to say, while Isabel clearly doesn't want to say more. However, they both know that they can't stay here forever, and so after a moment, Isabel clears her throat, gruffly telling May to follow her, since they still need to look after Swampert. Twilight has dyed the pristine seas surrounding Slateport City a toasty topaz as the Team Magma helicopter comes in for its descent. From the co-pilot's seat, Max radios ahead to their lead operative in the city, and to his surprise, a girl's voice, seemingly not much older than himself, responds, telling him to land on the roof of the Oceanic Museum, which is under their control. Relaying these instructions to Maxie, the boy watches as his mentor carefully guides the yoke downwards, causing them to gently touch down at the aforementioned point. An honor guard of 4 grunts is waiting for them, and when Max and Maxie disembark, the grunts salute before clearing the way for a petite young woman with shockingly pink hair, who runs up to embrace the Magma boss. Smiling paternally, Maxie greets the girl as Courtney, introducing her to Max and asking if she's managed to get everything ready for his part of the mission. Flashing a slightly manic grin, Courtney says that it's organized chaos just like he wanted, confirming Max's suspicion that she was the speaker from before. However, this doesn't stop him from calling her statement oxymoronic, but before he can go any further, Maxie lays a soothing hand on the boy's shoulder, saying that he will explain everything. At once, Max falls silent, and so Maxie begins to detail his plan. Courtney and her troops are going to act as a distraction, drawing the attention of the police to the museum so the two of them can infiltrate their true target, the shipyard, undisturbed. Max beams that this is brilliant, while Courtney grins that of course it is. Maxie came up with it after all. Sensing friction between his young acolytes, and knowing that at least for now he needs them on the same page rather than vying for his affection, Maxie soothingly urges them not to fight, since they are both very precious to him, and it would make him ever so sad to imagine his dear ones are unhappy. This does the trick, as Max and Maxie immediately fall over themselves to make him feel better, and for a moment, Maxie has to force himself not to laugh. Children are too easy to manipulate. Unfortunately for the Magma boss, his delightful dose of sycophantry is cut short by the wailing of police sirens in the distance, and so knowing that time is of the essence, he brings forth his crowbat and climbs onto its back, while instructing Max to do likewise with Blaziken. Nodding, the boy brings forth the firefighting type, and after asking it to kneel, clambers onto its back, taking hold of its beige-coloured head feathers like reins. Voice raised now over the much closer sirens, Maxie wishes his young protege luck, then takes off into the air on Crobat, while Max's Blaziken make use of its powerful legs to leap onto a neighbouring roof and run in the same direction as Maxie.
Blaziken proves itself quite well equipped for urban traversal, running just as fast as Crobat can fly and easily bounding from rooftop to rooftop without once jostling Max on his back. Quickly, the sounds surrounding the museum become a distant echo, and in its place comes the sounds of the sea. Soon this is joined by the whirling of rotor blades, and looking up, Max spots the helicopter he and Maxie arrived on, soaring above him. Of course, that's why his mentor had him travel this way, since it would give the others a means of escape. Surely, Max thinks when it comes to his subordinates, no one cares about them like Maxie does. pride swelling in his chest at being one of Maxie's hand-picked inner circle. Max redoubles his focus on the mission, not wanting to let him down. And moments later, Maxie sees it, the shipyard, and just like Maxie said, it appears deserted. Landing on the roof, the son of Norman gives his starter a hug as a thanks for its quick work. While besides him, Maxie touches down, wordlessly returning Crobat to its ball. He then looks at Max, asking if Blaziken will do the honors, and without hesitation, the boy tells his blazing chicken to make an entryway. Igniting one of its powerful legs, Blaziken leaps and drives a blaze kick into the roof. And just like that, the Magma pair find themselves staring down their prize, the Submarine Explorer 1. Following Blaziken through the hole, Max and Maxie land on top of the submarine. And seeing that there's only 2 seats in the small cockpit, Max recalls his partner with a smile. Opening the hatch, the boy prepares to climb inside. However, before he can get too far, a pair of angry voices yell out to stop. Whipping his head around, Max spots 2 security guards rushing towards them. And so, reaching for Blaziken's ball, he prepares to stand and fight alongside his mentor. This gesture of loyalty is not lost on Maxie, who thanks Max for the unspoken offer, but assures him that he is more than capable of handling these 2 on his own. Right now, what he needs Max to do is to launch the protocols and submersion sequence, so they can get out of here. Nodding, Max obeys, sliding down the metal ladder leading into the depths of the submarine and throwing himself into the command chair. At once, a cacophony of alarms blare to life, and whether these are meant to announce the sub's launch or they're in response to its theft, Max doesn't know. All he knows is that they don't fully muffle the sounds of human and Pokemon screaming above. And in the instant, he is back outside his childhood home watching the greenhouse burn as Butler pulls him into a helicopter. Max! The call snaps him out of his reverie, and blinking twice, the boy finds himself face to face with his sponsor. Worriedly, the red-haired man asks if he's alright, and when Max gives him a groggy smile, Maxine asks him to move, saying that he'll take over piloting for now. Lurching into the passenger seat, Max watches as Maxie deftly takes command of the submarine, propelling it forward out of the dock and into the open ocean, all the while giving the boy sidelong glances to check in on him. Shame pooling in his stomach, Max begins to apologize, saying he didn't know what happened. He just sorta spaced out, but it won't happen again. He promises. Sighing, Maxie says it's not Max's fault, it's his. With how clever and hardworking Max is, he sometimes forgets he is still so young, and maybe this time he expected too much from him. This hits like a knife to the gut to know that he disappointed the closest thing he has left to a father in this world, and that he thinks less of him because of this. It almost brings Max to tears. Urgently, he continues to apologize, vowing that he'll do better next time, that Maxie can still rely on him, and that he'll never let him down again. Placidly, Maxie says he doesn't doubt it, instructing Max to get some sleep, since they got a long voyage ahead of him, and he'll need him in top shape when they arrive. However, the way he says this lacks the same warmth of earlier, and as Max closes his eyes, he can't shake the feeling of guilt and shame at failing his mentor.
Fortunately, it is only a short walk to the Pokemon Center, and when May and Isabel arrive, Nurse Joy is ready to receive Swampert. Gingerly, May hands over its Pokeball, as if afraid to cause the mudfish more pain by jostling it, and seeing May's concern, Joy promises that her partner will be fine, before handing the ball to her chancy assistant. Throughout this exchange, Isabel is hung back, watching May carefully, but now that it's clear the girl isn't going to try anything, she steps up, telling her to pull herself together, before taciturnly asking Joy if she knows where the next Pokemon contest is going to be held, since they're on a deadline. In a professional tone that gives nothing away regarding her thoughts on Isabel's attitude, Joy says she does in fact know that a Pokemon contest is being held in Fallarbor town in just a few days. She then looks to May, and comfortingly adds that she bets she wants to enter, considering her performance back in Rustboro Hall. Blinking twice, May wonders aloud how Joy could know about this, but the nurse just laughs that May must have really had a bad case of stage fright to not notice who gave her last ribbon. Eyes widening, May exclaims that this Joy must be the same one who judged the Rustboro contest, and beaming with delight, the nurse confirms this, praising May for the way she and Swampert were able to work as a team. Smiling in spite of the worry bubbling up at the mention of Swampert, May apologizes for not recognizing Joy sooner, but the pink-haired woman waves this off, telling her to go get some rest and something to eat, since Swampert isn't the only one in need of recovery. Having missed out on her pasta, May is starving, eating, but with all the knots of worry in her stomach, she doesn't feel much like eating when she and Isabel reach the cafeteria. Seeing this, the tactical commander roughly thrusts a pair of crackers and a bottle of water into her arms, ordering her to eat and drink all of it, since they have a long trip ahead of them and she's not going to slow down because May hasn't taken care of herself. Despite all the things on her mind, this act of decency is not lost on May, and so as Isabel begins to chart out a path for them to Fallarbor town, she does her best to help. Since they don't have time to take the usual route, and neither of them have a Pokemon who can carry them by air, it takes a fair amount of time and creativity to plot a path that will get them there in time. But proving her title of Tactical Commander is not for show, Isabel manages, though it will mean traveling through Meteor Falls. Trusting that Swampert can get her through this, May agrees to this route, and with no other business to attend to, Isabel dismisses her, saying they'll be leaving first thing in the morning, so May should try to get some sleep. However, even if May wanted to sleep, she knows she couldn't, such is her worry about Swampert, and so when Isabel heads up to her room, May returns to the ER, watching Nurse Joanne Chansey through a window, and silently pleading for her friend to wake up soon.
Finally, around 3 a.m., Joy emerges from the surgical suite, and with a smile on her face, she tells May that her Swampert has made a full recovery, handing her its ball. Feeling as though a weight has been lifted from her shoulders, May gratefully thanks the nurse for her efforts. Then cuddling the ball like an infant, she finally returns to her room and allows sleep to claim her. However, she does not have long to rest, as even before the sun is in the sky, Isabel's voice snaps her awake, insisting that they get going right away so they can hit their target distance. May is not a fan of this idea, pulling the covers over her head and demanding 5 more minutes. But any hope of further sleep is quickly shattered as the tactical commander brings out her Remoraid, holding it like a pistol and ordering it to spray May with a water gun until she gets up. Now wet and cold as well as exhausted, May gives her companion an evil glare as she lurches out of bed. But Isabel is not fazed in the slightest, instead smirking that May will need this before tossing her a towel and instructing her that unless she needs another dousing, to be out in the front in 10 minutes. To Isabel's surprise, May manages in 5, and the admin has to admit that she's impressed at the quick turnaround, even if this is only expressed by an approving nod. Recognizing the true meaning behind the gesture, May gives her a nod of her own, before dropping the towel back in Isabel's hand and telling her not to stand around since they got a long trek ahead of them. From here, Isabel's attitude towards May begins to change, with a redhead granting her young companion a bit more leeway as long as she continues to prove her competency. Picking up on this, May does her best to impress, figuring it would be in her best interest to get in her Warren's good books, especially when, unlike Archie, Isabel isn't entirely terrible the more May gets to know her. While not a chatty or especially friendly person, Isabel is smart, having a quick mind and a deep birth of knowledge, which she is happy to share. While this does come with a heaping helping of snark, it is helpful nonetheless. And May is reminded a bit of her brief travels with Ash. Another way Isabel comes to remind her of her erstwhile Cantonian companion is her deep affection for her Pokemon, tending to their needs before she even considers looking after herself each time they make camp. On their 3rd evening of travel, while in the shadow of Meteor Falls, May finally gathers up the courage to ask Isabel about this, saying that most members of Team Aqua, including Archie, only see their Pokemon as tools. Brusquely, Isabel agrees that while this is true of most of their comrades, it is also short-sighted, bordering on stupid. At the end of the day, people are unreliable, but a Pokemon's loyalty is absolute so long as you treat them right. On this, May agrees, giving Swampert a cuddle and recounting how the Mudfish has had her back through thick and thin. Oddly enough, this causes a bashful expression to cross Isabel's face, and in a gruff voice, she admits for what it's worth she didn't like doing what she did to Swampert back on the yacht, but she had no choice. It's not the first time Isabel has expressed dissatisfaction with Archie's leadership, and so considering the redhead's willingness to answer her last question, May tentatively asks why Isabel stays with Team Aqua if she's so unhappy. Sighing, the tactical commander replies that being a kid May wouldn't understand, but at this point there's nowhere else she can go. Isabel doesn't doesn't feel like talking after this depressing declaration, and so the rest of the night and much of the next morning are spent in silence. Finally, after hours of delving through caves, the duo comes across the eponymous waterfalls of Meteor Falls. And thankfully, after their planning session back at the Pokemon Center, May and Isabelle are well prepared for this. Bringing out Swampert and Ludicolo respectively, the two women climb on top of their water type's back and hold tight as they launch upwards, using a special move courtesy of Isabelle that allows them to swim directly up the waterfalls. The pressure of the water buffeting down is intense, but May refuses to let go, vowing that if Swampert can endure this, then she can too. Thankfully, it's only a short trip lasting less than a minute, but to May and Isabelle it feels much longer. And when they finally reach the top and are able to recall their Pokemon, they both take a minute to rest, knowing that there's still several more waterfalls they must climb in order to reach Route 114.
Each waterfall is worse than the last, with May's hands soon going numb from cold, only to ache from the exhaustion and intense gripping when they eventually regain feeling. It is an unpleasant way to travel, but as Isabelle has already pointed out, it is the only way to reach Fallarbor in town, and so despite wanting very much to complain, May keeps her silence and focuses on not losing her grip, lest she have to repeat the whole process from the start. Finally, around dusk, the cold, wet and tired duo spot the light at the end of the tunnel, and so with renewed vigor, push themselves to get out of this wretched cave and see daylight once more. Thankfully, it is a relatively warm evening, but Isabelle still insists on making a campfire to dry their clothes as soon as they get onto Route 114. And May is pleased to see that at least today's trials have pushed whatever was bothering her companion last night from her mind. Though Fallarbor town is within view now, the duo decide to camp where they are, too exhausted to hike even these last few miles, and for this decision they are rewarded with a chance to witness the beauty of nature firsthand. In the trees, a flock of Swablu and Altaria sing their night song, and as if on cue, a new nocturnal world is born, with Illumise and Volbeat lighting up the sky, while down below Spinder dance to their own teetering rhythm. May can't help but marvel at this rich tapestry, but she does not remain a mere observer for long, as soon one of the Swablu flaps down to land on her head, choosing it as the perch from which it will add its voice to the chorus. Its song is high and clear, creating an ethereal melody line that cuts through the rest like a tangy flavor among sweet. And to the side, Isabelle points out that based on its size and the pitch of its voice, this Swablu is likely still quite young. Beaming, May calls the little cloudbird really talented to be able to sing so well at its age, and when it flaps its cirrus wings in joy, she reaches up, handing it a bit of hardtack to nibble on. Half joking, half reproachful, Isabelle warns that May should be careful feeding wild Pokemon, since they might get attached, but May grins that the commander is overreacting, and a little snack never hurt anybody. Shrugging, Isabelle tells the girl to have it her way, then without another word, lays down on the ground and falls asleep. Despite her bodily fatigue, May stays up for several more hours, watching the night Pokemon frolic and play. Eventually Swablu stops singing, but instead of flying away, it instead migrates down into May's lap, nestling in it quite comfortably. May has no problem with this, feeding it more snacks and stroking its soft feathers as it coos happily. However, eventually May's eyelids do begin to droop, and so in a sleepy tone she tells Swablu that it's time to go home. Looking up at her, Swablu gives a sad whistle, then burrows its head into her stomach as if saying it doesn't want to go. Confused, May asks what about its friends and family back in the flock, but the cottonbird Pokemon just shakes its head before pressing its beak once more into May. Reading this message loud and clear, May smiles, asking if it really means it wants to come with her, and when Swablu tweets and flaps in the affirmative, she pulls a ball from her bag and bops her new friend on the head, officially adding it to her team.
A storm rumbles overhead as Max kneels in the wreckage of the Petalburg gym. He is digging as deep as he can to find it. It is essential Max finds it. Everything will be alright when he does, but no matter how deep he digs, it is nowhere in sight. By now he must be pretty deep enough that even if he tried, he could not get out of this hole. Suddenly, May appears standing over the hole with an evil look on her face, and urgently Max cries for his sister's help. Cackling, May asks why she would ever help him. He dug this hole, now he must fill it. After all, it's what he deserves. Only now does Max realize what he thought was a hole was in fact a grave, and although he could not see the headstone above, he has no doubt whose name's upon it. Cackling even louder, May begins to kick dirt, with the grit getting in his eyes and mouth so he can't see or breathe. Desperately, he tries to throw it back out, but it's no good, as by now May has been joined by others who start kicking more dirt in. Her evil Aqua Swampert is the first to join her, soon followed by the Pokemon from the greenhouse, then Butler, and finally his parents. They laugh as they throw dirt in, and soon Max finds himself completely buried, trapped forever without a chance of escape. He wants to scream, but even that's impossible, so in the darkness he cries, "Please save him, someone, anyone." "Max, wake up, we're here." These words cut through the young man's dream, pulling him back to reality. Looking up, he sees that his savior is Maxie, and so he gives his sponsor a smile as he is helped to his feet. Softly, Maxie asks if Max is having another nightmare, and with a nod, the boy recounts the events of the disturbing dream. A sad expression crosses the Magma boss's face as he listens, and when Max is done, he lays a hand on his shoulder, smiling that he thinks he has something to make Max forget all about that nightmare. After all, he did promise him a surprise, didn't he? As he makes this declaration, Maxie gestures towards the viewport, and looking out for the first time, Max sees that they are down on the ocean floor. Love Disc and Chinchou gliding merrily through the water, while Clampearl and Shelder nestle among the silt. However, this isn't what catches Max's attention. Illuminated in the sub's headlights is a wreckage of a sunken ship, and without needing to be told, Max already knows this is where his parents died. Apologizing for taking so long to find where the wreckage was, admitting it was harder than he expected, but he hopes it will give Max the closure he needs. Tears running down his face, Max thanks his mentor for doing this for him, and with a thin smile, Maxie wraps his arms around the boy, telling him that it was his absolute pleasure. He then adds that there's another part to this surprise. During his time tracking down the ship, he manages to find a passenger manifest detailing which cabin Max's parents were in, and so if the boy would like to visit it and see whether some of Norman's Pokemon might have been able to survive inside their Pokeballs. The thought of seeing some of his dad's old Pokemon again makes Max want to jump with joy, and so hugging Maxie, he eagerly declares his desire to go. Maxie smiles that he thought Max would, gesturing to the back of the sub where a pair of high-tech Suba scoots are hanging, and telling him to get dressed and they'll get going.
A few minutes later, Master and student are dressed in their gear, and while Max is a bit big for him, he has no intention of letting that stop him as he follows Maxie out into the open ocean. This far from the sun's light, the water is freezing, and for one dreadful moment Max is reminded of his nightmare. But this passes as Maxie takes him by the hand and leads him into the wreckage. As Max finds out, not only is the water cold thanks to the lack of sunlight, but it is also dark, with the interior of the sunken ship being pitch black when they leave the range of the submarine's headlights. Thankfully, Max has an idea on how to solve this, and so briefly doubling back, he pulls a Pokeball from inside his suit and lobs it at the nearest Chinchou. For a moment, the water electric type makes a confused squeak at being hit in the back of the head by this projectile, but this is quickly stifled as it is sucked up inside the ball and summarily caught. Bringing out his newest capture, Max is pleased to see that the friendly fish is more than willing to act as a guide and light source for himself and Maxie as they venture further into the ship. Inside it is eerily quiet, with the only sound being their movement through the water. This puts Max on high alert, his heightened emotional state since waking causing him to treat every new sound or shadow as a Team Aqua ambush. From the boy's side, Maxie watches these reactions with interest, his keenly analytical mind weighing up the cause and how best to exploit them. To his eye, there are two probable reasons Max could be acting this way. The first being that this is some attempt to proactively win back his boss's good graces after the incident at the shipyard, in which case by continuing to feed him morsels of affection, he will be able to continue making use of Max. The second, and far less promising reason, is that the boy is already starting to crack under the pressure, and if that is the case, then Team Magma will have no further use for him, and he will have to be removed in a manner similar to that oaf butler. Vowing to keep an eye on Max one way or the other, the Magma boss spots something something at the edge of Chinchao's lamplight, which he thinks could be a very good test of his young disciple's mental state, and so calls out to Max. As he had hoped, this spooks the creature he had spotted, causing it to swim right at him, and forcing Max to order Chinchao to intercept it. Up close, Max and Maxie see that it is a large huntail with a set of very sharp teeth, as evidenced by its attempt to use bite on Chinchao. Darting back deftly, Chinchao uses water gun on Max's command, blasting the sea snake with a pressurized torrent. However, for a creature who dwells here in the ocean's depths, water pressure means nothing, with Huntail shrugging off what it perceives as a tap on the head before swatting Chinchao with its tail. Squealing in pain, the angler Pokemon is sent flying towards a rusty bulkhead, which at this angle looks more like a guillotine blade, ready to slice poor Chinchao in half. Refusing to allow his new friend to suffer, Max kicks off one of the walls, grabbing onto Chinchao and pulling it to safety, even at the cost of slamming his own shoulder into the ship's hard ceiling. Seeing what Max was willing to do for it, Chinchao affectionately nuzzles its new trainer, its antennae flashing in a soothing pattern. This gives Max an idea, and so calling out to Maxie, he asks if these scuba suits are rubberized. Knowing at once what Max is getting at, Maxie nods, calling it a good idea, but urging him to stay back during this particular follow-up attack. Nodding, Max lets go of Chinchao, telling it to get as close as it can to Huntail and then use Electro Ball. Squealing excitedly, Chinchao dashes up towards its foe, spinning as it does for extra flourish, before manifesting a ball of electrical energy between its antennae. At once the salt water all around it conducts the electricity, illuminating and electrifying the entire cabin. Despite the rubber in their suits, Max and Maxie still feel a tingling current run through their bodies, though this is nothing compared to Huntail, who is suddenly immersed in enough electricity to turn it into extra crispy unagi. And unsurprisingly, when the attack ends, it is floating belly up and unconscious. Swimming over, Max gives his delighted Chinchao a hug, while the anglerfish reciprocates, flashing its lights for joy. Maxie watches all this with a genuine smile. Not for the new bond the boy has formed. No, that means nothing. What matters is that he has received empirical evidence that his prized protege is just as sharp as ever, and that is exactly how he needs him to be. If Maxie is to be of use in his plans to revive Groudon and establish himself as the unquestioned ruler, not just of Hoenn, but the world.
From here, the rest of the trek through the sunken ship is a piece of cake, with the Magma duo encountering no more Pokemon until they reach Norman and Coraline's room. Bracing himself for what he might see inside, Max forces the cabin door open, though to his surprise finds no signs of his parents' remains. Perhaps they met their end in another part of the ship. Not wanting to dwell on this painful thought, Max instead gets to work scouring the cabin for any Pokeballs. Maxie and Chinchao help, though neither have any more luck than the boy. As more time progresses, Max begins to lose hope, wondering if his dad kept his Pokemon on him. However, just before he's about to give up, Chinchao's light falls on something, a belt under the bed. After so long underwater, the belt is a molted, moldy color, explaining how it had blended in during Max's first pass, but upon closer inspection, Max is ecstatic to see 6 Pokeballs. Pulling the belt into the open, Max examines it and the balls as if they were priceless treasures. And to his dismay, finds the first ball on the belt is badly cracked and damaged, having either taken damage in the chaos of the ship going down, or succumbed to pressure here down at the bottom of the ocean. Tears fill Max's eyes as he imagines the tragic fate of this Pokemon, though his tears are not for it alone, as he soon sees that the same is true for the second ball on the belt. The third, fourth, and fifth are also damaged beyond repair, and Max almost doesn't want to look at the sixth, knowing that its inhabitant will be dead like the rest. But call it hope or scientific curiosity, Max does look, and to his great surprise, he finds it cold, moldy, and miraculously intact. Cheering, Max calls Maxie over, showing him his find. Smiling, the Magma boss congratulates his student before asking if he knows what's inside. Shaking his head, Max admits that he doesn't, though if they can get the ball back to the sub, he can check. Maxie nods that very well, they will make haste, and as Max and Chinchao lead the way, he smiles, wondering which of Norman's previous and powerful Pokemon has just fallen into his hands.
May and Isabelle arrive in Fallarbor town bright and early the next morning, and though Isabelle does give her young companion some grief over not heeding her warning about Swablu getting attached to her, they are both in high spirits when they enter the contest hall. However, this good mood is promptly spoiled by the bellowing of an obnoxious woman with long magenta hair and orange glasses, who is currently lambasting the hall's receptionist for not accepting her expired contest pass. Tactfully, the receptionist admits that this pass has been out of date for a while, but she can renew it if the woman would like, an offer which finally makes the loudmouth quiet down, allowing May to line up behind her without risk of hearing damage. Finally, the woman is handed her new pass, and so with a haughty laugh, she swans away to the contestants area, while May steps up to register. May's registration is thankfully conflict-free, and when it is done, she tells Isabel that she's heading backstage to prepare. Shrugging, Isabel tells her to do what she has to do, admitting that she finds contests asinine, so she'll be down at the Pokemon Center if anything comes up. May is a little disappointed that someone she had begun to consider at least a comrade, if not a friend, isn't going to be there to cheer her on, but reminding herself that no one's been there to cheer her on any other time, she pushes these feelings from her mind, concentrating solely on the contest ahead. As always, the waiting is interminable, but after what feels like an eternity, May is called up for her appeal performance. Stepping onto the main stage, she allows the feelings of the crowd's adulation to watch over her, giving her strength, and as a genuine smile crosses her face, she tells her Pokemon to take the stage. Initially, she had planned to use Swampert for this contest, but after all the hard work it put in carrying her up Meteor Falls yesterday, she had decided to give it a well-earned break, and so it is Swablu who emerges from the ball with a core. Those who have followed May's contest career so far let her cry at the sight of this new Pokemon, and on May's command, Swablu does a lap of the stage before beginning to sing that high beautiful song from last night. This by itself is captivating, but May is far from done, and so with a grin calls for a double team. At once, two more Swablu appear, one on either side of the original, and when they're in position, May reveals her trump card, having her little cloudbird use Round. Suddenly, the three Swablu begin to harmonize with each other, creating an otherworldly song that stirs the heart of even the hardest among the audience, and as it comes to an end, Mr. Contester has to draw out a handkerchief to dab at his moist eyes. May knows she's done well, and this is referenced in her score of 26.5, one of the highest so far. Beaming, she hugs Swablu, thanking it for its effort and preparing to head off stage. As she goes, May notices the coordinator replacing her as none other than the rude woman from the lobby, who Vivian Meridian introduces as Jessica. By the time she returns to the dressing room, Jessica's performance is almost over, but May does get to catch the end of it, and more importantly the Pokemon she's using, a Meowth, but one unlike any Meowth she's ever seen before.
A few more appeals follow Jessica's, but truly none are anything to write home about. And so when the round comes to an end, May is not overly surprised to see both she and the magenta-haired woman have advanced to the battle round. May's semi-final opponent is a boy with a C-Dot, and Swablu makes quick work of it thanks to its high speed and super effective pecs, which prove that the grass type is not in fact a hard nut to crack. Likewise, Jessica has no trouble with her semi-final opponent, although her battle is marred by the warning of the judges to keep her Meowth under control, after it decides to keep beating its downed opponent. At last, the finals of the Fallarbor contest arrive, and as May and Jessica take the stage, the glasses-clad woman sneers that they might as well just give her the ribbon now, says she'll cream this little twerpet in no time flat. Grinning, May tells her not to take them lightly, since her and Swablu put their heart and soul into their performances, so they're not gonna lose. This only causes an angry vein to pulse on Jessica's temple, and when Vivian gives the go-ahead, they bring out their Pokemon and begin their battle. Licking its slip at the side of the bird, Mal the Meowth makes the first move, extending its claws and lunging at Swablu. Thankfully, Swablu is able to dodge this, soaring into the air, but this is not the safe haven it might have hoped. As quick as a flash, Mal leaps onto the curtains lining the stage, and with its sharp claws, it's able to climb up and slash at Swablu once more. This comes to such a shock to May that she doesn't even have time to warn the little bird, resulting in the dark type's claws raking across one of Swablu's wings with enough force to take it out of commission. Unable to keep itself aloft with only one operable wing, Swablu makes a crash landing, while Mal leaps down to land on top of it. With another hearty chuckle, Jessica jeers that it's just like she said. This battle was already decided before it already began, so why doesn't May just give up? Gritting her teeth, May snaps that this old hag can dream on, since she'll never give up, not when the fate of those she loves is on the line. But Jessica could care less about the rest of her declaration, having stopped listening after the phrase old hag, to order Mal to really make Swablu suffer. grinning maliciously at finally being able to cut loose. Mal bites down on Swablu's neck, causing the baby bird to shriek in agony. Urgently, May tells it to break free, but this is all for naught, as all Swablu can do is bat feebly at Mal with its injured wing. This unsuccessful effort, coupled with the damage Mal is inflicting on Swablu, causes May's points to take a massive hit, and as she looks up at the scoreboard, she realizes that unless they can get out of this bind in the next move, it'll be game over for her and Swablu. Racking her brain, May strikes upon an idea, and so tells Swablu to sing as loud and off-key as it can. Swablu obeys, letting out a wailing warble that makes the judges and the audience cover their ears. However, their discomfort is nothing compared to Mal's, whose big ears and extremely close proximity to the noise makes this an agonizing experience. Such is Mal's pain that it recoils, letting go and staggering away from Swablu with its paws covering its ears. This is just what May hoped for, as with its ears covered, its face screwed up in pain. Mal is unable to see or hear its trainer's warning as Swablu lunges forward, driving its beak into the cat's soft underbelly.
Up on the scoreboard, Jessica's points plummet, and from her end of the field, she yells at Mal to get back in the fight, since even a worthless flea bag like it can win against a flightless bird. This Mal hears, and an evil look fills its eyes at this slight to its pride. Suddenly, the variant Scratch Cat vanishes, and as everyone wonders where it's gone, it reappears in front of Jessica, extending its claws once more and slashing its trainer's face to ribbons. Incensed, Jessica screams how dare it do this to her, but Mal doesn't want to hear it, turning its back on her and glaring at Swablu. On her side of the field, May can't help but think how different this Meowth's relationship with its trainer is from Ash's, but such reflections are short-lived, as Mal, no longer caring about anything but its own predatory instincts, throws itself at Swablu. Knowing that dodging is out of the question, May repeats her last trick of dissonant singing, and to her surprise, this seems just as effective from afar as it did at point-blank range, suggesting to May that whatever Swablu's doing might be a real move, and a super effective one at that, which means that if they can keep it up, they might actually be able to knock this Meowth out. This becomes even more of a priority a moment later, when the battle clock ticks down to its final minute, and May sees that Jessica still possesses a point advantage. What's more, at the rate her opponent's points are decreasing, they'll still be higher than hers when the time runs out. If only she had a way to do more damage. More damage. More! At once May knows what she must do, and so smiling broadly, she tells Swablu to do what it did in the appeal, but with this song instead. Understanding, Swablu creates its doppelgangers, and where once only one dissonant melody was bombarding Mal, now there are three, each harmonizing in a way that makes them more and more unsettling than any one of them could hope to be on their own. This is too much for the variant Scratch Cat, and just before the clock strikes 0, its eyes roll back in its head, ending the match in a knockout, and securing May the win. Furiously, Jessica snaps that she knew she should have used one of her new Hoenn Pokemon, rather than this mangy Alolan reject, but May smiles that Mal was a really tough opponent, and it shows what a strong coordinator Jessica is to have raised such a powerful Pokemon. Huffing, Jessica snaps that May better not forget that, vowing that next time they meet, she'll be the one who comes out on top. May grins that she looks forward to the rematch, with the pair shaking hands, before May is handed the Fallarbor ribbon.
Back in the Submarine Explorer 1, Max and Maxie are in the process of depolarization, so they don't get the bends. Chinchou, being able to exist both on land and sea, sits jauntily on Max's shoulder, while in his hands, the boy clutches his father's last Pokeball. Staring intently at the orb, Max's mind races with all the possibilities of who could be inside. To see any of his father's trusted companions again is a blessing, and although he wishes he could have saved more of them, he makes a silent promise that he will be the best trainer he can to this last one, and that together they will achieve the goal Norman had for his son, to be Hoenn's champion and protector. Finally, a chime rings throughout the sub, signifying that it's safe for them to move about, and so Max makes his way to the main cabin and opens up the moldy Pokeball. Maxie watches from the cockpit, forcing himself not to lick his lips with anticipation. Though not the final gym leader, Norman's reputation as the strongest is part of what made Maxie desire Max as his personal protege. Now, not only does he have the boy who is devoted to him, heart and soul, but he shall soon be in possession of one of Norman's Pokemon, who will no doubt serve Max and by extension him just as loyally. With a flash of light, the Pokemon inside emerges, and after a moment of bated breath, Maxie sees that it is a Staraptor. Max is beside himself, rushing over and hugging the bird, who hugs him in turn, its long wings wrapping parentally around the kid's shoulders. Maxie, on the other hand, is disappointed, having hoped it would be his legendary Slacking or his rare Univin Sawsbuck rather than this overstuffed Pidgey. But nonetheless, a clever man can use whatever tools are laid out in front of him, and so adopting a smile, he wanders over to greet the new arrival, only to be scratched across the face. Upon seeing him, Staraptor springs into action, slashing at Maxie with his talents, and with no hesitation, it then goes for a second pass. Diving out of the way, Maxie orders Max to recall this brute at once, and as Max frantically apologizes, Maxie and Staraptor's eyes meet. There's something to the normal flyer's glare that unsettles Maxie, almost like the beast knows who he is and what he means to do with Max. Finally, Max manages to return it to its ball, and as he does, Staraptor lets out one last caw, which Maxie can clearly comprehend. I will protect this child from you, if it's the last thing I do. Now that Staraptor is gone, Max rushes over to check on his mentor, asking if he's okay. Mildly, Maxie says that he'll be fine once he gets a doctor to check his wound, and that Max shouldn't feel responsible for Staraptor's actions. However, for the sake of prudence, perhaps it should remain in its ball for the remainder of this voyage. Dutifully, Max nods, asking where they headed next. Getting back into the pilot's seat, Maxie explains that their next port of call is Mossdeep City, since it has the nearest hospital, and beyond that, it has a gym which he imagines Max would want to challenge. Beaming, Max says that he does. Now that he has Blaziken, Chinchou, and Staraptor, he knows he can't lose. Maxie knows that at this point there's no need for him to say anything else, as Max is already lost in his own thoughts, envisioning the battle ahead. Such a tactical mind is a gift, and Maxie has no issue with the boy honing it in his gym challenge. If anything, it serves his ends, as one day he'll make use of that mind to rid himself of that pest Archie and that smug egotist Giovanni once and for all.
About an hour later, the submarine breaches the water's surface, and from there it is a short ride to Shoal Cave. Curiously, Max asks why they don't just head directly for Mossdeep, but with a paternal chuckle, Maxie reminds his apprentice that their vessel is stolen and likely reported missing. To arrive in it would be tantamount to a confession. Sighing that he guesses so, Max helps Maxie to moor the sub so that it won't float away, before following him to a small motorboat bearing the red and grey M of Team Magma. Soon the duo arrive in Mossdeep City proper, and as Maxie rises to his feet, Max thanks him once more for finding the ship and letting him see it for himself. A fond look on his face that holds no genuine emotion, Maxie tells the boy that it was worth all the effort to see him smile, and instructs him to go win that badge and show the gym leader just what Team Magma's best is capable of. Giving a small salute, Max bounds from the boat, running up the high street and straight for a large domed building bearing a heart-shaped crest which he figures is the gym. After these last few weeks of aimless wandering, it feels good to be back on track towards his dream, though what doesn't feel quite so good is when he crashes headlong into the person coming out of the gym. Landing in a heap, the stranger, a boy with a red pompadour and pointed teeth, yells at Max to watch where he's going. In response, Max sticks out his tongue, telling the other boy to take his own advice, since he's just as much to blame for this. Flaring up, the redhead calls Max a mouthy little snot, asking how dare he try to act tough, but Max won't take this lying down, at least not figuratively, and so tells him to put his money where his mouth is and face him in a Pokemon battle. Sneering, the shark-toothed stranger tells Max he's not worth the effort, since he just got back from a training trip to the far-off Kanto region, so he's battled trainers who've got all sorts of rare Pokemon Max has probably never heard of. In comparison, a pipsqueak like him would be no challenge at all. Angrily, Max says he's no pipsqueak, but the other boy doesn't seem to care what Max thinks, having already risen to his feet and started walking away. Scrambling to his own feet, Max furiously yells at him to come back and battle him, but with a dismissive wave, the redhead says that he's not interested in battling weaklings, so if Max wants to face him, beat the gym and all the rest, and they'll settle things in the league. When the redhead is gone, Max dusts himself off, huffing that he'll show that jerk in his stupid hair, before entering the gym at long last. Inside, Max finds himself in a place that more closely resembles a planetarium than a Pokemon gym. The floor of this place is pocked and cratered like the surface of the moon, while up above hang a series of model planets. Floating among the planets are a boy and girl with dark hair, and unlike the planets, they are not suspended by wires. When they hear Max enter, they lower themselves to the ground telekinetically, and Max eagerly asks how they did that, with the boy grinning that they're psychic, just like their Pokemon. His inner Pokemon lover coming out, Max beams "This is so cool," asking which psychic types they use. Coyly, the girl says they'll happily show him in a battle if he wants to challenge for their badge. Nodding, Max says he does, before looking between them as if to silently question which one of them is the gym leader. Smiling widely, the twins explain that they are the tandem leaders Tate and Liza, and in order to win the Mind Badge, he will have to beat them in a double battle. Putting on his game face, Max says he'll happily take them both on. Then as one, the trio head to their respective sides of the field.
As the gym leaders, Tate and Liza reveal their Pokemon first, with Tate showing off his Solrock, while Liza does likewise with her Lunatone. Knowing that Staraptor's moves would be practically useless against this pair, Max elects to go with Blaziken and Chinchou, fully aware of the steep disadvantage Blaziken will be at. Nonetheless, he has faith in his partner to carry him through, and so the anglerfish plops onto the Kiki Avian's shoulder. The call is given for the battle to start. All fired up, Max takes the first move, ordering Chinchou to use Water Gun on Solrock. At once, a jet of pressurized water shoots from the angler's mouth. However, just before it can strike the rock psychic type, it comes to an abrupt stop. Perplexed, Max asks what gives. But with a cheeky grin, Eliza replies that she's covering for her baby brother as per usual. Tate angrily barks for his sister not to call him that. Liza directs Lunatone to use Psychic on the water to redirect it at Blaziken. This hits head on, causing Blaziken to grunt in pain. But even still, it stands strong. That is until Solrock follows up with a rock throw, which slams into Blaziken's shin, forcing it to take a knee. Things are already looking grim for Max, but nonetheless, he keeps pressing on, telling Blaziken to use Sky Uppercut while having Chinchou ride its shoulder for the time being. Leaping into action, Blaziken sprints forward before leaping into the air. And as it does, Blaziken has Chinchou use Water Gun at a close range on Lunatone this time. Unfortunately, this goes as bad as well as the first attempt, with Solrock this time using Psychic to stop the water move, while Lunatone uses Psychic to slam Max's Mons into a wall. Moments later, Tate hurls Chinchou's Water Gun at them, and in the state that Blaziken's in, Max fears that this might be the end. Frantically, he calls out to his Pokemon, and hearing the worry in its trainer's voice, Chinchou leaps into the air, slamming into the Water Gun and shielding Blaziken. However, instead of dissipating the water, Chinchou seems to drink it up, and as it lands, it looks completely refreshed, having regained the health it lost from being slammed into the wall. With a cheer, Max realizes that his Chinchou must have the ability Water Absorb, and with a grin tells Tate and Liza that they can't use Chinchou's move to hurt Blaziken anymore. Calmly, Liza admits that it seems they can't. For now. And as if through some unspoken connection, Tate grins mischievously. He then tells Solrock to use Sunny Day, and at once the starry night of the planetarium gym becomes brightly illuminated. Looking confused, Max wonders why Tate would do that, since Sunny Day would only make his Blaziken stronger. However, Tate laughs that it will do far more than just that, before calling for a solar beam. In the bright conditions, this powerful blast requires no charge time, and so fires directly at Chinchou, who squeals in fear of the super effective move. Thankfully, before it can hit, a shadow falls over the little anglerfish, as Blaziken dashes in, using its vaunted speed to grab its teammate and pull it out of harm's way. Wrapping its tiny flippers around Blaziken, Chinchou gives the firefighting type a grateful hug. While as cool as ever, Blaziken stares down Solrock and Lunatone, as if warning them not to count it out just yet.
Buoyed by this resurgence, Max says Blaziken hop onto one of the model planets, then quickly leap onto another, and then another. Tate and Liza are clearly baffled by this strategy, but Blaziken understands, thinking back to their trip across the Slateport rooftops, and so uses the jumps to gain more and more speed. Finally, when its movements start to blur, Max calls for Blaze Kick, and Blaziken doesn't hesitate, throwing itself at Solrock. However, as has happened time and again, Lunatone is there to cover for its partner, freezing Blaziken with Psychic. But this time something is different, as Chinchou, who is still clinging to Blaziken, lets out a point-blank water gun right at Lunatone. It is a good strategy, but it has one crucial flaw: Solrock, who uses its own psychic ability to catch the water and redirect it, this time at the floor so it doesn't inadvertently heal Chinchou. Moments later, Blaziken and by extension Chinchou are thrown down as well, but as they hit the ground, Max smiles, knowing exactly how he's going to win. As Blaziken staggers back to its feet, clearly not up for more beatings, Max praises it, promising that they'll have their victory very soon. Tate calls this optimistic bordering on delusional, since from where he's standing, he can't see any way Max can win. But with a faint chuckle, Max replies that's exactly why he's going to win, before telling his starter to use Blaze Kick on Chinchou. With a gasp, Liza declares that Max has lost it, but even still, she and her brother can't help but watch as the Flame Avian kicks its teammate towards the ceiling. Soaring through the air, Chinchou gives an exhilarated cry, then on Max's command, it lets off water gun while spinning like it did against Huntail. At once, a tidal wave hangs over the field, forcing Solrock and Lunatone to psychically suspend it so it doesn't fall upon them. However, by doing so, they are unable to stop the model planets whose strings have been cut by the pressurized water from falling. And here is where Blaziken comes in, leaping into the air and using its Blaze Kick to turn each planet into a bouncing fireball, which rockets around the room, slamming into the other planets, and more importantly Solrock and Lunatone. As the two rock psychic types crash into each other after being buffeted about by burning balls, Tate declares that he and Solrock will handle the planets, but he needs Liza and Lunatone to keep the wave from coming down on their heads. Nodding, Liza gives her brother the go-ahead, and so Tate has Solrock freeze the model planets in place. All is calm, and for a moment, it looks like Tate and Liza still have the match under control, but then Max laughs. This sound chills the twins to their core, and moments later they see why, as Max reveals that everything so far was a feint to force Solrock and Lunatone to keep using Psychic, since now that they're all tied up, they'll be defenseless against this. Suddenly, Blaziken is in front of them, its feet aflame as it drives a Sunny Day empowered Blaze Kick into each of the gym leader's Pokemon. But this is not the end for Solrock and Lunatone's woes, as when they crash into the wall, Chinchou is waiting for them, ready to fire a super effective water gun from which there is no escape. It is a brief and brutal strategy, but undeniably an effective one, as when the water gun finally lets up, the planets and wave crash to the ground, and when they look at their Pokemon, Tate and Liza find that they are unable to battle. And with that, the battle is over. Max thanks his Pokemon for an amazing effort, while Tate and Liza instruct theirs to get a good rest after the hard work they put in. The twins then approach Max, expressing admiration for how effectively he used their ultimate defense against them, and laughing a little, Max admits that it wasn't easy, and had he not had certain recent experiences, he might not have been able to come up with his counter. Grinning, Liza says that if he ever comes back to Mossdeep, he'll have to tell them all about it. Max promises that he will, and so it is with smiles on all faces that the twin gym leaders bestow Max with the Mind Badge, bringing him one step closer to his dream of becoming champion.
It is almost evening when May returns to the Pokemon Center, having been swamped by admirers who all want to know how she thought up that ingenious usage of Swablu's voice to take out the Alolan Meowth. When she arrives, she immediately goes looking for Isabelle, knowing how impatient the time-sensitive woman will be to return to the road. However, to her great surprise, May can find no trace of the tactical commander, despite being certain that this is their established rendezvous point. Figuring that Nurse Joy might know something, May heads to the front counter, but unfortunately Joy confesses to not having seen anyone matching Isabelle's description since returning from the contest hall. However, she does mention that someone tried to contact May while she was away, leaving instructions for the girl to call them back as soon as possible, since whatever they wanted to talk to her about was seemingly urgent. Wondering if this has something to do with Isabelle's disappearance, May makes her way to the phone bank, and after punching in the number Joy gave her, she is greeted by an office with a beautiful sea view and the most garish decor imaginable. It does not take our heroine long to figure out whose office this is, but even still she is not prepared for the pure revulsion that floods her entire being when Archie floods into view with the greeting of "Evening, sweetheart."
Pursing her lips, May gets straight to business, asking the Aqua boss what's so urgent that she had to call him in a public place. But seeing May's discomfort, Archie grins that he'll explain in due time, though first he wants to talk about about her latest contest. He watched it from his office, and he's glad to see that the investment he made in her is paying off. But that doesn't mean she can slack off, since she still owes him 2 more ribbons. Coldly, May says she'll carry out her end of the bargain, though she can't help but notice Archie still hasn't delivered on his promise. Grinning as if this is just banter between friends, Archie teases that she's a lot more feisty when there's half a region between them, but if she really wants to talk about what she's owed, they can discuss it next time they meet in person, which as a matter of fact, should be quite soon. That's actually what this whole call is about. He's headed to her neck of the woods for a top secret task which is crucial to the success of Team Aqua, but in order to achieve it, he's gonna need the help of a certain someone. Unfortunately, this person has proven rather stubborn in their refusal to help, meaning he will have to be more forceful in his persuasion. And as luck would have it, May just happens to be in the same town as this person, so the job now falls to her. Convince them of the error of their ways, then hand-deliver them to him. Scowling, May asks what happens if they still refuse, but Archie just smirks their consent is not required, and he is willing to overlook a degree of injury, so long as they are still able to work when she brings them in.
And that's where we're going to be leaving part 2 off for now.
The next part will be on my channel, so remember to go subscribe.
And be sure to subscribe to Ronin Charizard and Plus Ultraman to know what's going on in Kanto, since you never know who might appear in a connected universe.
But before we go, we want to know what your thoughts are on the story so far.
How do you feel about May and Max's new Pokemon?
Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you when the journey continues.